Alright guys, this week we're going to be looking at synthesizers, particularly how this one, Native Instruments Razor, compares to the one we looked at in class. I'll start with the similarities. Similarly, they both have a very standard layout of, you have your oscillators on the left, you have your filters in the middle, and then you have your amp stuff on the right. And then that's pretty much the only thing that they have in common. This one doesn't have any conventional waveforms with the oscillators, so you have pulse to saw, which means that you can't get a saw wave. You have a duo saw sort of thing. I mean, look at these, pulse width, Hoover, what the fuck is that? I mean, they're all totally proprietary. Sick pitch bend. This is a synthesizer made to make noises. It's preposterous. Anyway, so I'm using the formant here, and I got another formant one underneath it, which I've selected differently. We'll get to that later. So that's your oscillator section. Your filter section now does have a low pass, like what we saw in class. That's a pretty standard thing, but it's also got, you know, a low pass with a ramp, a broad, a phaser, low pass dirty, formant decay, another formant filter, which you can use with the formant oscillator to make some really nasty vowel sounds. And I'm using vocoder. I'll tell you why in a second here. Alright, so we got that. And then your amp section, you got reverb, but you also, I like using unison noise a lot, really thickens up the sound, kind of acts as a noise oscillator. That's still kind of part of the filter though. And then of course you have your amping section where I've just got a limiter on here, but you've also got compressors, saturators, clippers, everything you could ever want and all sorts of stuff that you don't. On the underside here, we've got your amp envelope, which is your master envelope, your attack, decay, sustain, release controls are all pretty much present, and you can tweak them as necessary. You have two more envelopes to do the same thing that you can assign to different things, like your attenuation or your, you can put anything you want there. You can use it to modulate the formant of the wavetable, which is the, we're not going to get into that. No, don't worry about it. Anyway, and then we have our LFOs underneath here, and they're really easy to use. You can just click and drag them to get different wave shapes out of them, and then you can either use them as hertz to have them go at a certain interval, or you can sync them to the beat of your song if you want everything to be on tempo. And you can use the speed control to sort of do things there. Cool. You get two of those. Now, one thing this has that the ones being looked at in class didn't have is this thing has something called safe bass, which is a low frequency oscillator as well. Unlike these ones though, you can actually hear this one. It just adds a sub rumble underneath everything that's within the audible hearing range. So you can basically turn any patch you make into a bass with that. Crazy stuff that you can do with the synthesizer. Now, one of the big things that's also different about it is that it really eats the crap out of your processor. Now right now I've got a screen recording software running, which is also pretty labor intensive, so we're not actually going to be able to see anything that this thing can do. I bounced out some samples though, but it does have the spectrometer in the middle that shows up, and I'll try to show you that as quickly as I can here. You'll get a little blip of it. There you go, that's all you get, because then this thing pops up and says, too bad, not enough CPU power. But you can see it pops up little spectrograms, so you can see what's going on. Anyway, since we can't really get a good idea of what that's doing here, I'll try to show you here. I've got the vocoder on here, which basically takes any incoming audio and uses it to modulate the synth, much like you would do with an LFO on the amp envelope. As you can see, the amp envelope's kind of disabled here because it's the vocoder. I have a vocal sample from a Taylor Swift song, I Knew You Were Trouble, and I pitched it down a couple octaves. It sounds really stupid, but when you have it going through my entire list of things here, multi-band distortion, a compressor, you can get some really cool sounds out of it. When I bounce them out, so you can kind of hear them. So this is after my computer's already processed them all. They end up sounding like this. Holy crap. Yeah, it's just, you can make so many different kinds of dubsteppy, nasty, growly noises. Anyway, so I'll upload the finished track that I was using this on so you can hear them in context, and I think you're really going to like it. I would recommend it. It's not very complicated, and the layout's pretty much the same. I mean, there are some more complicated things you can do with it, obviously, like the vocoding and whatnot, but yeah, so that's Razor. Worth looking into, I would say. I think it's like $80. Anyway.